session, a quick review on what we have seen till date. Review of as of day 4. So we started with object spy, then we moved on to object identification. I'm not getting into details, just to refresh. Then we moved on to object repository. So main purpose of object spy, to recognize the properties of an object by QTP and its method. There are three ways an object can be recognized. One is standard, another is non-standard, third is non-recognition objects. How to identify each one? Object Spy will help you in identification. Details are explained in the respective classes. Then object identification, there are two roles to play. One, to convert non-standard object to standard object. Two, to configure identification properties. There are three ways we can configure an identification properties. One, mandatory, assistive, ordinal identifier, and we have one more called smart identification. As of now, we have yet to touch smart identification. We have seen what is mandatory properties. This is the property default used by QTP to recognize the object. In case mandatory property fails to recognize the object uniquely, he takes the help of assistive properties. In case assistive property fails to recognize the object uniquely at the time of recording, he takes the help of ordinal identifier. Ordinal identifier has three ways to do it. One, location, index, and creation time. Location uses x and y coordinates. The object which is close to the x-axis is assigned with the value 0 at the time of recognition. Index, the object which is currently active is recognized with 0. At the time of recording, whatever the situation of the object, he recognized with that index. Creation time used for only browser object. The first browser that is opened is assigned with value 0. This is about object recognition methodologies. To configure a non-standard to standard, it is applicable only for Windows, standard Windows add-in. You have a user-defined under object identification tools, object identification, you have to select from the environment list box, you have to select the add-in, standard Windows. On selection of standard Windows, you get the so-called user-defined button enabled. From that, click on that button will enable you to configure the class of that object which you like to configure from non-standard to standard. Then we move on to object repository. Object repository, there are two components. One component is called logical name, second component is called description properties. Logical name is used to identify the object from the script to the repository, and it is internally controlled. Logical name are assigned by QTP by himself. He has his own logic to assign a logical name. Logical name cannot be duplicated within a single repository. Second, description properties. At the time of recording, using the object identification principle or configuration, QTP tries to recognize the object properties, along with its properties, and the recognized properties are stored into the repository in a name value pair combination. So the names that has been used are taken from with the help of object identification. Next, during replay, there is no use of object identification. QTP uses description properties and tries to identify the object in the application under test directly using description properties. This description properties, usage of description properties leads to the concept called descriptive programming at the later stage. In case we don't want to use the repository, or there are situations where you are forced to go without a repository, in such situations you can manage the object recognition using descriptive programming. This will become across as we touch dynamic objects. This is also we have seen. After that we have moved on to record and replay. By default it is context sensitive recording. So under context sensitive recording, QTP recognizes the objects and the actions performed on that object. QTP doesn't bother about keyboard or mouse movement. Second type of recording, analog recording. Under this analog recording, we have seen that QTP recognizes the object only with reference to the keyboard or mouse movement, and it cannot recognize the object with objects. There are two types of analog recording. One is relative to the screen. Second is relative to the window. So relative to the screen, all syntax you have to be very careful in case if you are going for a certification. Desktop.run analog within bracket track 1, then window object, window logical name, dot run analog. This is the syntax of analog recording or recorded scripts. Track 1 or track 2, the name that is coming, it's not in your hand. It is not the track 2 for all windows. The 1, 2, 3, it was number of recording you have it in your script. It varies accordingly. Next we have low level recording. Low level recording uses object as well as the x and y coordinates within an object. So this is what we have seen it under record and replay. Then we moved on to VB scripting. Under VB scripting, following things we have seen. So we have come across string manipulation. Under string manipulation, we have started with concatenation. Then we ampersand and the plus symbol we have seen. These are all the concatenation operators. Second, we have seen in string command. Then we have seen mid command. Then we have seen split command. Then loops. Then loops, conditional statement, right? Arrays, these we have seen under VB scripting. We have made it into two classes, part 1 and part 2. We have lot more VB scripting. We'll see it as we go. Practicing of this area is very important. String manipulation is the most important one, right? In string to get the position, mid command is to get the substring, split to split the string that you have, arrays, how the split always stores the return value of the split is arrays, loops, for loop we have seen, conditional statement, if then else we have seen. Next we moved on to data table parameter. Under data table parameter, we have seen how to configure the data table, data from the local sheet to the script. The command or the syntax is data table. Syntax are very important for you to remember. Data table, column name, followed by dt local sheet. dt local sheet is not within quotes. Please note, this is to retrieve the column from a local sheet. For global sheet, that is what we are going to see today, an exercise on this data table. Again column name, followed by dt global sheet. This is the parameter command, data table parameter command. Then we have seen random number. The syntax of random number is random number within bracket start and end. So start and end can be an expression, it can be a variable, it can be a number as well. So this is what